The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello?
It works.
It works? Are you sure? Positive? Haha.
There is a question here, today's poll question. When you take a trip, does your diet go on vacation too? And that's a nice question just to consider. So let's start with the next area. Let's see if I can change my screen here. There we go. So obviously, as we talked about, when most people go on vacation or they go traveling, they actually want to, enjoy what they're doing. They want to actually try foods they haven't had. They want to be able to relax a little bit. But it's important just to have a little plan of action that you're going to begin to use your vacation for some fitness routines that you haven't tried before. You can begin to use your vacation as a way to try healthy foods that you haven't tried before. So it's a good time when your routine, you can change it, but not for necessarily bad, but for good. And it's important to be able to do that without having the negative consequences of a diet change that's going to be bad for you. So, whole point, the challenge that we deal with, obviously, if you're going and you're staying in a hotel, and a lot of people now are staying in Airbnb, so it's a little different kind of picture. You can actually kind of tailor how you're going to eat because you have your own home that you're staying in. But if you're in a hotel, the hotel vending machines are very expensive for one, and actually their little places you can buy food are very costly, so you're spending money you shouldn't spend there. And at the same time, the foods aren't the best quality for you. And then, of course, your schedule changes. I just came back from South Africa last month, and when you go on a long airplane ride like that, 18 hours to Dubai, then another 8 hours to South Africa from there, throws off your whole schedule. So you're eating at a time you don't normally eat. You're not, besides just eating the food, you can actually get a lot of gastrointestinal symptoms, reflux symptoms because of the travel. So you may eat foods that are trying to calm that down, and that's difficult as well. So obviously the schedule is very difficult in that. Dining out a lot, we know we're going to go to restaurants, and that's a good thing. And one good thing about that is you can use your apps and use your Google search before you even go. I was in Germany a few years ago and went to Berlin. So before I even went, I had scheduled out different places I want to try that actually had fresh foods and different choices that were there. So that's actually a good thing because you're dining out and you can really plan that out a lot better nowadays probably than you could before the internet was so ubiquitous. And obviously scheduling time for exercise. So that's something that is really hard because of time zone changes, especially because you're going to be a little more fatigued, and make sure you actually have your exercise schedule going. And then what happens a lot of times is when you're on these trips and you can go to the gym. I know on a cruise I was on last year, everyone wants to go to the gym the same time, and it's not enough room in there for what you're going to do. So you have to change the time you actually exercise from the morning to the evening when there's less people there, or you just go out and run around the deck, do things you can do differently. Then having to eat on the go, on the road, in the car, and that's very difficult because I love the Mediterranean diet. And one reason why the Mediterranean diet is so helpful is because it really encourages you to eat in a time where you're sitting down in conversational style with your family, because it gives you time to digest your food and to think about what you're eating and not to overeat. When we eat on the go and on the run, in the car, fast food, we tend to eat very quickly. And by the time by the time you finish eating, basically, you don't know you're full yet. It takes about, 30, 45 minutes for you to actually know that you're full. And if you're eating very quickly, you're filled up and your belly's full and you pretty much are finished, and you've gotten too many calories. When finding healthy food or snack options is always important. So the big thing about it is when you're traveling and going to restaurants, this is true here, but especially when you're out away from home, if you're staying in a restaurant or staying in a hotel that does not have a refrigerator, that's great, because don't try to take home any leftovers. That's my big tip. When you're actually going to a restaurant, buy something a small portion if you can. You get it off of a menu that actually is a small portion size, but don't be afraid to actually leave some food there. I was telling my family, leave something on your plate and don't take any doggy bags home. If you're staying here and you're at your home, you can take it home and eat it later. But if you take it to the hotel and there's not a fridge or there's a small fridge, you tend to feel like, oh, I got to eat this food. I spent money on it. I want to use it up before I waste it. And you go from there. Don't worry about that. Just eat whatever is there, and then don't try to overeat or take it with you. Most restaurants that you go to are going to have a lot of saturated fat, a lot of creams and sauces on the food. Everything's going to be high in sodium. So you want to make sure you're picking menu items that are not going to go that direction. At the same time, we're not really good about knowing the amount of calories or saturated fat that are in the dishes you order. You can find that on your app on your phone, but most people aren't looking at that when they're ordering, so they're not able to really restrict their diet in that area. So that's actually hard in restaurants. So our 10 travel tips for eating, and that's actually more important, is that try to pack food that you could actually eat once a day. Breakfast is a good place for this. You actually can take things that you can have in your luggage that you're going to eat in your room before you go out for the day. That's a good thing to do, especially when you have young children, to make sure everyone's eaten before they leave and they're eating food that you can know the portion size of. Then you go out for your day and they're not saying, oh, mommy, daddy, I want to eat, oh, this and this and that. And if you have children, they're going to do that anyway, but you can actually more easily say, you eaten. We've already eaten for the morning and we're going to go and do what we're going to do until noon. Put some breakfast options in your luggage, and things that are light that actually won't weigh a lot if you're worried about your going over on your international travel of your suitcase weighing too much, but things that are easy. Instant oatmeal is great. Using whole grain breakfast cereals, breakfast bars, even fruit. Now, fruit's difficult when you're traveling certain places because internationally they don't let you take a lot of fresh fruit, but locally you can do that, and that's really nice. If you're going on car trips, you definitely want to pack a lot of things in your car so you don't stop at all these rest stops and get food that's not good for you in rest stops. Obviously, what's important is when you're going and you're even locally, but you want to go for a lot of zero-calorie beverages. If you're eating out, it's a lot easier if you're drinking a lot of water. Make sure you do that, which is important. But if you're going to have some diet drinks, that's helpful, that don't have calories in them. You can actually add in sweetener packets. So what I like to do is have either NutraSweet. Have one of the packets of the Kroger brand flavoring for water. I love that, and it's actually I like the black cherry energy one that you put into your sparkling water, and that's great. You can just add that at the restaurant, which is good. I don't like the ones that actually give coloration to the water, so not a lemon lime or things like that, but the ones that actually just leave the water the same color, which it is, gives a little flavor, a little boost to it, which is great. And that's good for your children too. They like that, and it doesn't require them to, and water is a lot cheaper to buy than soda. And then obviously alcohol when you're out, especially people can drink, thousands of calories in a week on a cruise of alcohol. People are just doing all this. I have patients come back and they weigh 10 pounds, 15 pounds more than they did when they went on there, or left their cruise. And a lot of that is just the food is ubiquitous, but then the alcohol, adding that in there, and just lots of calories that are in their system. So just being real careful with that. Especially, and remember, if you're going to Mexico and you're actually not drinking the water. A patient came back last week with traveler's diarrhea, and he said, oh, I didn't drink any of the water, but he had lots of ice in his drinks. So he had a lot of crushed drinks, a lot of processed drinks, and all that ice that you're having is just like you drinking water. So if you're having all these mixed drinks with crushed ice, you're going to get traveler's diarrhea. So making sure that you're actually very cognizant of that as well. Number 3 is actually trying to just really make sure your portions are watched out for. So try to eat foods that are very different, a variety of foods. Try to have things that are really great. When you go on cruises and you go to the main dining room and you're eating whatever's on that little menu for that night, people will say, oh, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, and they get 4 or 5 entrees, get 4 or 5 appetizers. Obviously, you have a whole week you're on the cruise. That's great. Just enjoy what's there. Try a little bit of this, and you're full, and you go on the rest of your night. Don't have to try everything and eat it all, and people should do that very commonly. And then ordering off the children's menu is very nice, or just an appetizer, and that might be all you need to go from there. Or if you're going to get an entree, split that entree, and that's very helpful when you're at a hotel and you're staying at a hotel and you're out at a restaurant when you're traveling, because you can't take a lot of food back. There's not a lot of room in that fridge. So split that entree with your family. And the restaurants, you think that they may think they'll think we're cheap and we can't afford to buy. Who cares what they think? Just really make sure you don't have a lot of calories. Obviously, number 4 is really just make sure that you can customize what you're ordering, and that helps out. Although I was in Germany a couple years ago, and the waiter was very rude there. So I said, hey, and when you try to ask for things that are different, so I don't know if you go to different countries, they may be very rude about how they don't want to change things on the menu. But if they don't, get up and go somewhere else, vote with your feet. But the whole point of it is that most people are very accommodating for what you're going to order. So obviously, when you're getting salad, ask for dressings on the side. Don't have them put it on. You can more commonly, and you can easily control it yourself and go from there. Sauces and gravies can put on the side of what you're eating as well. Obviously, try to always get some fresh vegetables and things that are steamed and not fried when you're eating. Get side salads and not French fries added to the meal. So French fries are not, if you ask, they did a study a few years ago and asked children what the most common vegetable they had was, and they said, oh, I have French fries. Well, starchy vegetables don't count. So you want to have green vegetables and good vegetables in your meal each and every day. And then, of course, when you're able to, and most times you can nowadays, you're going to request whole grains and not have a simple white flour and things like that in there. So if you're going to eat wheat pasta, if you eat wheat pasta, if you're not gluten intolerant, you want whole wheat pasta. But what's a good option is to actually ask for the gluten-free diet plan on their menu. So if you look at their gluten-free menu, there's a lot of different options on there that cut back on the amount of calories you're going to have in some of the pasta dishes, and also it gives you a little bit more fiber in certain areas as well. So that's a good thing to look for. Even if you're not gluten intolerant, you can actually go the gluten-free menu, which is nice. And also, travel tip number 5, you're going to get a lot of fruits and vegetables in your diet, and that might be another recommendation just when you're traveling is to have a meat-free day. I think I don't eat meat myself ever, but basically I think I'll tell patients a lot of times, just maybe 2 days a week, have a meat-free day, no meat at all. And if you do that, if you cut back on the amount of meat, you'll avoid a lot of calories and a lot of dishes, because I can't have this, can't have that because there's meat in it. So if you do that, you'll have more vegetable options and you'll increase your fiber. The average American has about 9 to 10 grams of fiber per day, and we should have about 30 grams of fiber a day. So you need to find options and ways to put more fiber into your diet. And if you need to do that, one way to do it is by actually having vegetables and fruits in every meal and cutting out things that don't have any fiber in them at all, which is very helpful. Number 6 is actually being careful with condiments. Now, if you actually do Weight Watchers, they always say that 0 points on things like mustard and ketchup, because those don't have very many calories in them, but there is a little sodium in there. But even if you're just being careful with condiments in general, you want to leave them off completely. So a lot of times if you'll get the Chipotle ranch sauce on this and all these things that you can get on top of your burger or on top of what you're eating. And when you do that, there's a lot of calories, a lot of sodium in there, a lot of fat in there. So what you want to do is, just do lettuce, tomato, simple toppings that you can put on your burger without all the creamy things that are going on. Leave the cheese off of different things that you're eating, and that's very helpful anyway. And if you like fish, and if you can eat fish, if you're not intolerant to it, you want to add seafood in instead of red meat. And seafood does give you a little bit of less calories, a little less fat, basically, which is helpful. And it's just a little lighter on your stomach as well, and that's nice. Omega-3, especially if you get oily fish, so things like salmon, dark tuna, swordfish, halibut, those types of fish are very good with the amount of omega-3 fatty acids in them. Now, if you're having things like tilapia or catfish, there's no omega-3 at all, and those are not helpful. They're not helpful for your heart at all if you just want to eat them. But they're not like, oh, I'm eating fish, I'm getting healthy for my heart. Well, if you're eating tilapia, you're not getting any heart health at all. But avoid battered and fried fish dishes, and obviously grilled fish are better options. And number 8 is beware of the munchies. So when you're sitting there at the table before you do, they give you lots of bread and they give you lots of calories there. And it tends to be when you get to the restaurant, you're very hungry. And by the time you sit down, they bring the bread out. Oh, I'm going to eat my bread and go from there. If you're going to eat bread, don't put anything on it, or put very little on it as far as your butter, or you're dipping into your oils. Obviously, it adds more calories there. Being very careful with that. But obviously, you may want to try a little bit of that, but just limit it. So I have one piece of bread before I eat, or I'll cut my bread serving in half and I'll share it with my family. people going to places like Olive Garden, and they get their breadsticks and their salad, that bread-facing salad, when they can all you can eat for lunch. People leave there with 3,000, 4,000 calories worth of breadsticks and salad. And they're like, how did I didn't have anything but breadsticks and salad. How did I gain weight? Well, obviously you can eat lots and lots of that. And having a dessert is okay, but sharing a dessert. So I think it's important that when you go out, you look for dessert options that are actually lower calorie options, maybe two or 3 days a week on your trip. So you're there for a week. You can have 1 or 2 days, maybe have the decadent chocolate, whatever you want to have, mousse cake that is actually very good. But other times, okay, I'm going to have dessert, but I won't have the things that are just very, very high in calories. When you're on a cruise, which is great, they do have, I was just on a cruise this past December, and they do have a lot of sugar-free options. You can try those once or twice on the week when you're there. They also have some options that are obviously Jello and things that are not going to be high in calories. They're not cakey or pie-y in nature, and that's important. If you're eating if you want to have some ice cream or dairy types of things that are frozen treats, frozen yogurt may be a little bit better than having gelato or even ice cream, because you're going to have a little different fat in there as well. So different ways you can actually decrease down your number of calories and still have a dessert, nice treat option when you're on there. So I can't say enough about getting things that are sugar-free. Now, when you do sugar-free things, don't have more because it's sugar-free. That's the problem people have. Oh, it's sugar-free, so I can have 4 instead of 1. Well, no, you can't do that. But you can just have that as, okay, I'm going to sugar-free cake, and it may be just enough for you to have that, and that's a great option. But 1 day a week, you can definitely have that high-calorie, nice thing that you want to have just because you're on vacation. Now, of course, the big thing is exercising. So when you're out there, make sure you put time for exercise in. So make sure you pack some clothes you can actually take to the gym and exercise in, and pack a couple days worth and go from there. That's important that you're preparing for exercise. Another thing to do is to take your TRS system with you. So if you're going to be in a hotel and you may not make it to the gym, but you can go on Amazon and order a TRS system, which is a pulley system, and you can actually just download a YouTube video, or you can just download a sheet of paper from a PDF file online. You can find a lot of TRS, and it's a resistance band system that you can use in the hotel. It has a hook on it. You put it above the door, or you put it actually in your hotel room, and you can use that pulley system for a 10-15 minute exercise routine you can do every day with that. You do that here at home. Just take your TRS system and put it in your house. But that's a nice thing you can do to actually have it in your travel bag. It doesn't weigh very much. It's not going to add any weight to your system. And you can do that. Now, if you can get out and do things in the hotel, that's great. And most hotels have free gyms there. It's disappointing. If you go to a lot of hotels, the gym is very, very cramped. Not very many options there. Machines that are not in good repair. So you want to have something you can use. So that TRS system is great, and it's just TRS, and you just go and just find it on your Amazon, and it's a pulley system you can use for training. Also, make sure you do lots of walking. So you can take your Apple Watch, your Fitbit, your pedometer, and you're going to be able to do lots and lots of traveling by foot. So it's nice to say, okay, it's a nice day. It's the restaurant we're going to is 2 miles away. Instead of getting a cab or getting an Uber, we're going to walk to the restaurant. We're going to do that, and that's going to be nice. So what I like to do also is climb stairs. So I'm a big stair climber, and on your Fitbit, it tracks how many flights of stairs you do a day. I like to do between 50 and 100 flights a day. So you can do that on a cruise or on a hotel very easily. You find the staircase that's actually really nice, a pretty staircase, and you keep that staircase nice and available for you early in the morning or late at night when there's nobody on it. You can go up and down the stairs and just watch your little YouTube videos or listen to your music. And it's a nice way to get lots of flights of stairs. 25, 30 minutes. You can do that in the morning and the evening, and it works out pretty well. So that's good to do. And it makes, you can do it when you're just doing for walking instead of using the elevator. But a lot of hotels, it's hard to do that from the first floor because the staircase from the first floor is hard to find, and it actually is very difficult sometimes to get up and down there for security reasons. They keep those locked. But there's usually a staircase you can do just a couple of flights up and down higher up in the hotel, and it makes it easier. So stairs are not always easy to do in hotels to just avoid the elevator completely, but you can definitely do it for exercise, and that makes out Makes it very, very easy. And then, of course, excursions are nice. When you go into the city and you go somewhere on a trip, you can definitely bike ride, you can rent bikes, you can do things like snorkeling and hiking. Those are things that are always fun to do. Just be careful about getting injured. I have patients getting injured on things they never did before, and they're doing zip lining and hurting themselves. So if you're not in good shape, be careful about doing these adventurous activities. Whole point about before you go, planning is very, very helpful. So what happens is you're going to make sure that you're looking up all the stuff you can do and making sure that you're going to have a plan of action for each day, not being very rigid about it, but just saying, okay, I'm going to try and do some activity this day and be careful about where I'm eating at this day. Don't be afraid to take food with you, especially packaged food that is going to be prepackaged. Fruits and vegetables are sometimes hard to take when you're traveling internationally because of agricultural restrictions, but you can do other things that are going to be okay, and making sure that you plan in large food groups. So you're making sure that you have vegetables and dairy in your meals every day. If you can take dairy, I'm not a big dairy person, but you can do vegetables obviously every day. You definitely can splurge on one meal every day, or splurge on one meal a few days a week, not necessarily every day, but you on your trip, but maybe once or twice you get a nice special meal. Otherwise, be very, very reasonable. Pick restaurants that are healthy options for you, and again, use your planning apps to do that. You can find some nice options in that city you're going to go to, and don't be afraid to look for nutritional value on the menu or finding on your app, and that's always good to do. Now, of course, studies do show that you can be off by 100 calories sometimes on the calorie, what they report and what the meal has, but you still can be reasonable with your calories. And vacations are important to make sure you're looking at how to put health into there and exercise into your vacation and going from there. So now we have time for some questions, and we can discuss this and go from there. So we will turn it back over to our team of special experts in using computer questions.
All right, so now we're going to take a moment. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them now, and then we'll start answering.
All right, so looking at the questions, so it looks like we have a question about the enhancers for energy enhancers. So the question is, are just water flavor enhancers in general, are they healthy for you? And definitely those are healthy for you. Now the energy ones, the question is, are they healthy? Should I take those? If you have hypertension, if you have cardiovascular disease, you shouldn't take the energy ones that usually the energy variant that's in there is some type of stimulant that actually can increase your heart rate. If you have cardiovascular disease, you shouldn't have those. But for most patients, the amount that's in there is very, very low. So it's green tea extract, one of those types of stimulants, and it's not a large, not a Fedra or something that's going to really hurt you there. So it may have a little caffeine in it too, and that's usually 20, 30 milligrams of caffeine. So it's not really even enough caffeine that you'd get in a cup of tea, but it's just enough to give you a little stimulation, and there's no calories. Some of them have multivitamins in them, like vitamin C, or actually have one of the B complex vitamins. So for the most part, they're safe, but you can definitely get the ones that don't say energy and they won't have any stimulants in there at all. And that's completely healthy, no problems at all. Let's see. So I see another question about fish. So I see two questions about fish, so we'll answer those. So I definitely don't recommend that you focus on if you're eating fish for health. That's basically the caveat there. that you're focusing on things like catfish or whiting or tilapia. So those fish are bottom feeders per se, obviously tilapia and catfish. So that in and of itself is not the best kind of fish quality for you. And then you need dark, oily fish from the ocean. So dark, oily fish from the ocean are going to be the best ones for getting omega-3 into your diet. So if you're looking at increasing your omega-3, especially DHA and EPA, you're looking at dark, oily fish, dark tuna, salmon, halibut, swordfish. Those are all going to be healthy. Now, a lot of patients actually are worried about the amount of they're worried about, especially pregnant women and young children, getting too much of the mercury in their fish, and they're worried that that's going to cause a problem with them. Definitely, if you're pregnant or if you have young children, they shouldn't eat things that are high in mercury, and those are going to be obviously a lot of the salmon that's actually farm raised, or even some of the dark types of halibut or swordfish. So those are not healthy for those particular patients, but for everyone else, it's not going to be a problem, and you can actually have as much of that as you can. And those are the best fish options for you. Grilled, obviously not fried, and making sure that it is actually prepared without a lot of sauces that are going to increase your calories or your sodium. So I see a question about pre-diabetic or having high cholesterol planning. So I think that for the most part, all the tips that we're talking about are really helpful for patients that are pre-diabetic. So cutting amount of simple carbohydrates out and getting more complex carbohydrates. I definitely don't recommend you do something like the Atkins diet or the paleo diet alone, but I think that if you actually have complex carbohydrates, things that are high in fiber, those are going to be helpful if you're pre-diabetic. If you have high cholesterol, you're obviously cutting out meat products. So the next question I see actually goes right into that, about meatless. So the best way to start going meatless is think about what is to reduce the amount of meat you're having first. So look at most patients, meat is the main star of the plate. So that's actually have a big piece of meat, and they may have some things around the outside. You want to make sure that if you're still eating meat, not meatless yet, but you're still eating meat, that meat is not the main star of the plate. So if you go home and you say, what do we have for dinner? They'll say, we're having chicken, pork chops, we're having a steak, we're having brisket. That's what they're having for dinner, is the meat. So you change your terminology. You say, what do we have for dinner? Well, we're actually having some vegetables and fruit and a little meat on the side, and not having the meat being the main star. And then once you've done that, once you've actually made meat a minor player in what you're having in your life that day, then you actually can, it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to have a hamburger. I go to a restaurant. Do you have a veggie burger option? They do, and you can actually get veggie burgers, and you can order those occasionally. We're not having meat. You can order your omelet when you go to the restaurant without meat on it. You can order lots of ways that you're going to start just cutting meat out of those environments and going from there. And then just that one day a week, say, I'm not going to have meat at all today. And you explore every option you can for not having meat that day. And then you add, okay, meatless Monday was great, and I'm going to meatless Thursday too. So every Monday and Thursday you don't have meat. You look at people like in the media, Beyonce, she about once a year, she becomes a vegan, and it's great. She's a vegan for, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, whatever it might be. Then she goes back and she goes to being a non-vegan. Now there's people that are true, like, hardcore vegetarians, like, oh, that's not, they get really upset about that. But I think that's really great. Patients do that. If half the year they actually don't have meat, and then half the year they go back and have reasonable amounts of meat, they're going to be healthier overall. They'll have decreased overall meat intake. So I think that's a good way to do it, is to start doing meat-free twice a week, and then go into a lifestyle where you're meat-free part of the year, whatever that might be, 3 to 6 months a year. And that's a good way to look at it. So another question that we have is about supplements that you can take to recover from being exhausted or sore after you're working out. So another way to look at that is when you're working out, if you are just beginning to work out, you're going to be exhausted and sore, obviously, and that's going to be expected, and you want to work through that. So the day after you work out, when you're sore and your muscles are full of lactic acid and it aches and it's hurting, make sure you do lots of cardio that day. Not hard running cardio, but just get on the bike, get on the elliptical machine, and just go for about 30 minutes and get those muscles really worked out really well, stretching out, warming them up. And that's going to be very helpful, because if you say, oh, I'm sore today, I'm not going to go work out, the soreness will last longer. So you want to get the blood flow going in those muscles. Don't go do hard activity. Don't go running on hard cement. That's not helpful. But just making sure that you keep those muscles warmed up, and that's very helpful. And if you're having it long term, so say you're working out, you're doing real well, all of a sudden you start having problems with just feeling sore and not recovering very well, then we need to look at your nutrition. A lot of times, if we're trying to diet and exercise at the same time, we're getting poor quality nutrition into our diets, we don't recover very well from exercise. So come in and let's talk about what you're eating before and after working out. Watch the supplements you're having. People are having a lot of these supplements that are just really, oh, my trainer said take this, take that. They're taking 20 pills and 3 liquids and all this stuff they're doing that are really not necessary. But just really making sure you have a good high quality intake of foods while you're working out will help you recover a lot better, and you'll go from there. Then another question that is very similar to that is people asking, can I just take the supplements and not eat the fish? In that sense, you definitely can. So people who can't eat fish for lots of reasons, they just don't tolerate it very well. If you take seaweed oil extract, which if you want omega-3 and you want DHA and EPA, you have to get omega-3 that comes from an ocean source. So you can't have a land-based omega-3 option that you're going to get much DHA and EPA in it. So you definitely can get seaweed oil for people that can't eat fish or don't do well with fish at all. And that's actually very, very helpful. And that can get you up to the 1,350 calories a day of DHA and EPA together. So you want to have about 1,300 to 1,400 calories, or 1,300 to 1,400 milligrams a day, of DHA and EPA. Now, that's not the total amount of omega-3 you're having, because you may have to get 3,000 to 4,000 milligrams of omega-3 to get that 1,400 milligrams of those two, DHA and EPA. Look at the back of the bottle and see how much you have to get. And the supplements work just as well as eating the fish if you can't eat the fish. And that's if you're taking it for cardiovascular health or even to decrease your risk of dementia, that omega-3 is very helpful. But you have to get the kind that's from an ocean source and not the kind that's from a source on land-based. People do that all the time, and it doesn't help if you do. All right.
Okay, so this is going to be our final question.
And patients, a good question someone asked is actually about losing weight without doing exercise or cardiovascular exercise. So I tell patients is that you lose weight by changing your diet. If you change your diet, you're going to lose weight. Now people say, oh, I've tried to do all this dietary change, I haven't lost any weight at all. But if you change your diet, you will lose weight over time. It's just a matter of time. If you get older and you get over the age of 40, your metabolism is very slow. So the minute you try to lose weight by changing your calories, you're going to actually have to wait a while before your body kicks in. But eventually you're going to lose weight if you have a calorie restriction long enough. But you only maintain weight loss with exercise. So you lose weight by diet change, but you maintain weight loss with exercise. And you got to do both. Now, the question about cardio versus resistance, you have to do a pyramid. So your first level of the pyramid is actually called NEAT, N-E-A-T. It's non-exercise anaerobic thermogenesis. So non-exercise anaerobic thermogenesis is Mayo Clinic terminology, which basically means you're just more active in general. 7 days a week, you're parking as far from where you have to go as possible, walking more, getting more steps. You're active in that sense. Number 2 thing on that list is doing more cardiovascular activity. About 3 to 4 days a week, you're doing 45 minutes to an hour of some cardio activity. That's where you're getting breathless, we call it. That's where you walk at a fast enough pace that you can't talk on the cell phone to your family or friends, walking down the steps. You're doing something that you can actually get your heart rate going more rapidly. That's cardio, swimming, jogging, some kind of cardio. But you have to, the top of the pyramid has to be some type of resistance activity and some type of weight training 1 or 2 days a week. You can do that with that TRS system we talked about, or you can do it through lots of ways. But you have to do that type of activity. Exercise is necessary in all 4 parts of the pyramid to really make sure that you're going to maintain weight loss and not just lose the weight and yo-yo. That's what we all do. I've done that before, and it's frustrating to yo-yo. So you want to do something you can actually do on an ongoing basis to maintain weight loss over time. All right, thanks a lot, guys. It was great, and hopefully you learned something that we're going to be able to use this summer with traveling and staying healthy.
All right, guys, this is going to conclude our webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to thank Dr. Thomas for an incredible job today. And I also want to thank you guys for signing up this month. Make sure you register for next month's webinar if you haven't already. You can register at the Kelsey-Seybold website, and we'll see you guys next month.